Hello lovely people, my name is Emma and today I'm going to be bringing you an overly specific book recommendation for books that are related to fabric and fabric crafts, and then after that I'm going to be showing you guys my embroidery collection, recommending some embroidery based books and looking at some of my favourite embroidery hoops that I've personally made. I will leave a timestamp down below if you're interested in my embroidery specifically rather than the book recommendations, but we're going to jump in. So the first one I want to recommend is a non-fiction, and that is The Golden Thread, How Fabric Changed History by Kassia and Clair. This, as the subtitle suggests, is looking at human beings' interactions with fabric and how fabrics have really played a pivotal role in shaping our history across going back all the different years as such. Each chapter is looking at a different kind of fabric and looking at specifically how it's interacted with humans, whether it be linen and cotton in like the ancient Egyptian times, whether it be things like silk or wool. Wool has been very important for British history, some of the things to do with lace and some of the lace making that was happening across Europe, and then coming more forward into contemporary times looking at some of the exciting work we're doing with synthetic fabrics and kind of tech fabrics of the future. It's a really interesting book, and it also has some really fun diagrams in it which are quite helpful if you don't have a crazy background in fabrics and you're not too sure of some of the terminology. And I just generally really enjoy Kassia and Clair's style. I thought that it was deeply interesting and it gives you such a sweeping look at so many different kind of histories that this would be a really good jumping off point if you wanted to kind of see what particular era interested you to then kind of go further and look at some further study. So definitely a really fascinating read. The next three books I have to recommend are fiction books. All three of them are historical fiction where fabric is really playing a key role, and I'm going in order of preference, starting with my favourite. My favourite of all of these is The Corset by Purcell. Purcell is an amazing author. I really enjoy her kind of take on the gothic historical thriller set in the Victorian era. The Corset is her second book and I think is the strongest of the ones that I've read so far, and it's about a young girl who is on trial for murder, and she believes that she has the ability to sew like magic and intentions into fabric, and in doing so it causes harm to people who then own and wear these items. It's kind of a it's a dual perspective, because you've also got, as well as the murderess who is telling her story, you've also got this kind of debutante of the time who does a lot of charity work in the prisons listening to her story and finding out about it, and she has her own storyline going on as well. I absolutely adored this. I thought it was so atmospheric and I really enjoyed some of the twists at the end, and there are some really lovely descriptions of the work that our kind of main character does, because she works in a dress shop making very fancy dresses for high ladies in high society as such. So absolutely wonderful and super atmospheric. The next one that I did enjoy, but I'm not too sure how historically accurate it is or not, is Crossbones by Jane Johnson. This is, again, it's a historical fiction, but we have a modern day timeline and a historical timeline, and it's about in the historical one, a woman who is stolen from Cornwall with a bunch of other people and taken to Morocco to be sold as slaves. But she is very good at sewing and she brings a particular style of embroidery with her to Morocco, and there's kind of a love story going on there with her captor, which is a little bit sketchy in places but also not sketchy in places. It's kind of a mix. And then we have a modern day story of one of her descendants, I believe, who finds like her journal written over the top of some embroidery plans as such, and it's basically going on a journey to find out more about her off the back of a traumatic experience in her life. Like I said, I don't know how historically accurate it is or whether there are some issues with representation at all, but I did enjoy it as kind of a quirky love story, and I really enjoyed the amount of sewing that was in it, which is the whole point to this particular video. So it was interesting and entertaining, and I did enjoy the pirate aspects of it, even if it potentially isn't as historically accurate as it could be. I'm saying potentially though because I've read a few reviews saying it was a bit sketch, but I obviously don't personally know, because I also don't know that much about Moroccan history myself. The final one I want to talk about I finished quite recently, and honestly was not the best, but if you are into fabric and fabric craft and also into historical fiction, I think it's cute enough that it's worth your time, and that is The Sewing Machine by Natalie Fergie. This is following along on 4 different generations who all end up interacting with like a hand powered sewing machine at some point in their life. It's quite sweet, and I really did enjoy the modern day part of it, where a guy who finds a sewing machine from his grandparents' house, and he ends up starting to do some sewing. So there was kind of some nice discussions there about sort of what masculine hobbies are, and you know, finding a love for sewing and things in that one. None of the characters were particularly well developed, and the storyline did feel a little bit brusque in places because it's following 4 different generations. But like I said, if you're a big fan of historical fiction in general, you'll probably enjoy it. It's kind of spanning from the very, very early 1900s all the way through to modern day, so you do get a nice kind of sweeping look of that as well. And now we are going to talk about some of my favourite embroidery books, and I'm going to show you my embroidery collection. So if you are looking to start off with some embroidery, one book that I recommend that everybody get is the Stitch Dictionary. A mate of mine pointed out that they missed a trick by not calling it the Stittionary. That's heartbreaking. This is a practical guide to many different stitches, and what I really love about it is it's got, if I try and find you, it's got like an amazing index where you can see, sorry, contents page, where you can see what the stitches look like, so you can go and find them very easily. And it's also got the stitches broken into kind of why you would need them. So you've got kind of line based things, and then more fill effects and like individual detailing things, and then going on to more of the exciting, almost like starting to become lace making kind of concepts, and some of the more blocking tapestry work. So there's a lot here, which is excellent, but it's all really, really clear. It ranks them from like easy to difficult. It explains how you'd potentially want to use them. It is absolutely fantastic if you are looking to just learn some really basic stitches to get you started, and also some more technical stuff to move on. I also really enjoy the Anchor series. I've actually got 4 of them here. These were my grandparents. This was my granny's, and then my grandma had them for a while. These are amazing because again, it's giving you a collection of different stitches, and they give you, what's nice about this is they give you pictures of different designs of like how you might want to use them, and they do also feature some of those designs in the back. So if you're looking at this being like, the other one being like, I need more help with how one would start working on designs, these are fantastic. And they also have like slightly more complicated, fancier work. This one's again the heart hanger embroidery, which makes holes in it, and there's one on like ribbon work. I haven't even used these 2 yet because that's starting to get like more advanced than what I currently do, so these are really amazing. So yeah, obviously as well, a great resource is like YouTube and Instagram. A lot of my kind of ideas come from Instagram, and I do see like different little mini stitch tutorials. So I'm going to gather some of my embroidery hoops, and I'm going to show you some of the work I've been doing. Okay, so I've been doing embroidery now for kind of semi-consistently for about 2, maybe 3 years, and then I also learned quite a lot when I was a kid from my granny. So that's kind of where a lot of my basic knowledge comes from. I learned sort of 8 or 9 stitches from her that I remembered, and then I've sort of been building from there. So I'm just going to show you like a range of some of the hoops that I've been doing. Recently I finished this guy, which was really cute and really good fun, and this was a funky scroll stitch that was an absolute nightmare to do, but I really enjoyed this as a style. And then this was another one of my lockdown projects, which is a lot of satin stitch, which is this very flat one here that takes a century to do, so this took absolutely ages, but this was kind of the start of my lockdown sort of projects. Doing some slightly bigger ones because a lot of the work I do is quite small because I do it at work when I'm running games sometimes. You'll know this one from my banner on YouTube. This is what I did when I designed my YouTube channel. So yeah, this one's quite cute, as you can see. I have fun doing letters as well. I really enjoy letters as a way of doing like different stitching styles, so I'll show you some of the letters I've done now. I've got an eye here that has got fluff on it already. Oops, everything has bunny fluff like sewn into it because of my house. So that one I had some fun with some directional things. This guy, all of these little dots are called French knots, and they're one of my absolute all-time favourite stitches to do. I think they're so cute and so easy and so much fun. And then kind of almost like pointillism. This was playing around with some of the stitches that were in one of the books, and I couldn't decide which one I wanted to do, so I thought I'd kind of break it into chunks to have fun trying out these different kind of weaving sort of pattern ideas. So that was really fun. We've got some kind of cute smaller ones. Another one that was just for like stitch ideas is this thing. It's kind of very avant-garde, but the whole point to it was to try a bunch of different styles of stitches from some of the books and really kind of challenge myself to learn some new things and see kind of how they work. Another French knot based design, sort of a seasonal thing there. I really love that. I kind of want to do it again but on better fabric, because I don't know if you can see this fabric's got tons of like big holes in it. It's a really good fabric for learning how to do embroidery because you can see the holes to make sure all the stitches kind of line up nicely, but I don't think it looks as nice. I've got another one that's on that kind of fabric as well here. These are called bullion knots, I believe. They're like an extended French knot and they're really fucking hard to do. So this was one of my first attempts and they could be a lot neater. Going cutesy. this little guy. That was when I first started like properly doodling with them. I think he's fantastic. Spacing wise, a little bit shoddy there. And I was playing around with some more lettering. Again, spacing wise it's pretty terrible, but again I thought that was quite cute and good fun. And then I've got probably my smallest hoop is this guy, where I used French knots. Oh, it's really struggling to focus on it. French knots, if I hide, there we go. So that you can see, like to make little butterflies. And then one of my favourites, and probably the one that I'm proudest of in terms of like styling of stitches, is this guy here. Where I followed an Instagram tutorial for how to make these things, these cool thistles, and I can't find the Instagram tutorial anymore, which is a nightmare because I want to relearn how to do it because I don't actually know it without the video in front of me. And then I'll show you a few things that I've been working on recently. I've got a little, it's not finished yet, it needs all the leaves putting in it, but I've got a little like hanger going on here, and I've decided to loop it up the top, and this is the first time playing with an oval, so I've been enjoying finding some different shapes because you get bored of circles quite a lot. I did some elaborate weaving work on this guy to make these little baskets, but there's space up here and I feel like it needs like a word or something here, and I can't decide what I want to add to this to make it complete because it just looks a bit empty. So if you have ideas, let me know down below what you think would make sense there. And I'm just about to start doing something a little bit more elaborate. Like I'd say I haven't done much ribbon work earlier. I have a piece somewhere that I got started with making ribbon roses on it, but I spilled red wine on it and now I can't find it in my collection of offcuts and abandoned ideas. So I need to go back to that one, but I found a tutorial for how to make these little like rosette flowery things. So I'm going to attempt to make a bunch of them and then sew them onto like a one of my hoops, and then make like a bouquet of flowers out of these really like rustic fabrics. So I'm intrigued by this one. I've never really done much like building fabric onto it kind of stuff. In terms of like where I get my ideas and things, I follow a lot of people on Instagram and I will try and link some of them down below. So if you want some ideas of like inspiration and kind of where to go, and I sort of riff off of other people's ideas and sort of blend them together and mix them and things like that. Some people also do sell patterns, so like that's a great way of getting into it. I personally just like to doodle and then kind of stitch on top of it, and I use a lot of inspiration from my bullet journal as well and other people's bullet journals. That's a nice way of kind of blending things together. The two definitely feed into each other for me, and basically I just grab some fabric and draw on it in a pen and then go over it, and which means that for some of these you can see the pen and pencil lines, but like I don't really care. I'm not going to sell them or anything like that, they're just for me. Eventually one day I might work out how to display them somewhere in my house, but for now they're just stacked up and I just really enjoy doing them. That's not all my hoops, but those are probably like all the good ones. There's some more scattered around the house. I'm also going to insert some pictures now of some ones that I've done that are for presents for people, because I think some of my best work has been presents for people as well. So those are going to be kind of popping up here as I'm chatting and doing my wrap up. So yeah, those are basically some books on fabric crafting, and then my other hobby that I do as well as booktube, or one of my other hobbies that I do as well as booktube. It seemed fair to kind of show you guys, and some people have been asking me about it, so I thought I would mention this. If you know of any other books that are about fabric, do let me know. I have a couple of non-fiction ones already on my like Goodreads want to read, potential future TBR kind of an idea, but I would definitely recommend that if you are looking for a soothing craft, that this is a really nice one to get into. And I personally find it more forgiving than things like knitting, because actually if you mess up it's a bit easier personally for me to go back, and there's a little bit more variety. Obviously cross stitch is a form of embroidery, and that is a way of getting into this. I personally don't like cross stitch because it's the same stitch over and over again. I enjoy playing with the different things that you can do with the thread. So yeah, so that's really it from me. I hope you enjoyed this, a little bit different on this channel. Have a wonderful reading week, and I'll chat to you soon. Bye.